of course, extremely important. We are very satisfied that NATO is now into working with security in the Arctic region in a more structured way. We have, by the way, asked for this for several years, but as you know, there's been this idea about low tension. It sounds very nice on a paper, but it doesn't reflect reality and the world that we are living in, unfortunately. So what we have suggested NATO is to be permanent present in the Arctic region, also in and around Greenland. Now we have Arctic Sentry as a framework. We have to put substance into it. The good thing about Arctic Sentry is that it's a flexible way of working, so it can be changed, it can be moved, it can be on a high level, it can be on a lower level, so it can, I mean, reply to the challenges that we see. If we come, I mean, when I look at NATO, I see we have, of course, an eastern flank. We have everybody knows about that. By the way, nowadays, today, that's the most important one. It's where most of our capabilities should be used for. We have a southern flank, counterterrorism, and probably one day we will see that somebody tries, Russia, of course, to use migrants from the southern part of NATO, as we have seen in Belarus and in Finland. We have a new flank when it comes to AI. Space, quantum physics, but we also have a northern flank. It's not where we have the most challenges today, and the Arctic region is enormous, and we have more issues in other parts of the Arctic region than we have around Greenland. Also important to say, but the world is changing, and so is the weather because of climate change. So at some point, we really have to be aware about what Russia and China will do around Greenland, but we are not there yet. But it's good to be, I mean, before things happen. So for us, Arctic Sentry is a very, very good thing. Let me just finalize this by saying we have to have the Arctic region reflected in our capability targets. Allow me to be a bit technical, but the capability targets we are seeing in NATO today does not reflect the high north and the Arctic region. And if we can change this, my suggestion would be to have industrial targets afterwards, because many of the capabilities we need in the Arctic region haven't been produced yet. Some of them has to be produced in US, and the production lines are not really replying to the needs we have. The same goes for Europe. So I hope this answers some of your questions. If you are interested in the more political part of this, I'll come back to that.
We will definitely get to the political side of it. We also want to just take a moment. The Prime Minister mentioned Greenland as being obviously a big part of Arctic security. Mr. Prime Minister, can you walk us through, give us a little sense of the view from Greenland?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I will be a bit more political, I think, in my start, because Greenland has been a center of attention for quite a long time now. And this topic has been filling the media. And from a Greenlandic perspective, we have been living in our region in peace and in low tension for many years. But we have also recognized in Greenland that I don't think there is any low tension areas in the world anymore, and we need to be a part of building up capabilities and taking our share in surveillance and in security in our region. And that's why I'm perfectly aligned, and we work really close together in terms of security in our area. And we are also very happy to have the NATO Arctic Sentry in Greenland. I think it's a step in a really good direction. But I will also mention, as Mette mentioned, that talks about the Russian and Chinese ships around our region in Greenland. It's not now, but we are not naive, and we see the longer perspective. When our routes in the northwest and the northeast they melt, there might be more traffic. But what we are aligned on, and the most important thing is that we will do more, and we are willing to lift our responsibility in Greenland to make that happen with our allies in the NATO alliance. And it's very important for me to say that the Arctic Sentry and the NATO alliance, it's something that we are truly committed on as Greenlanders. Transatlantic cooperation and international rule of law and so on, that's deeply in our values. But thank you for being able to attend this panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for setting the scene here. I want to start with one of our hosts here, Minister Pistorius. Both the Prime Ministers mentioned Arctic Sentry. You just came from a NATO meeting where this is now the new NATO mission that's just started this week in Greenland. Despite the fact we've been hearing quite a bit about it, it's not really clear what it is. Is it a rotation? Is it a long-term presence? How many troops are involved? You dispatched some, I think about a dozen German troops to Greenland several weeks ago to do an assessment. What did they tell you, and what is Arctic Sentry?
Mette answered that question already when she said Arctic Sentry is a framework. It's something we can put in and take out what is needed and what is not needed any longer. So what we start with is some Eurofighters from Germany, air fueling, and P-8 Poseidon in the weeks to come. So we put in everything we can do, like other NATO allies too. And we watch the situation, we are seeing what's going on, and we can react in the way which is appropriate. This is Arctic Sentry, and the framework is so decisive from my perspective, since everybody, I think, in this room too, believes we never were busy with the Arctic before. That's not true. I mean, we have been knowing all the time that the Arctic is relevant. I've been in Norway, in the northern, very high north of Norway 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, and having another view on the globe from the very north is totally different than looking at it from Berlin or from wherever, from Washington, for example. So it is another perspective, and it shows very impressively how the distances changes and the hemispheres of influence of the powers of the world, like Russia, like China, like the United States, and of course the European countries in the high north. So it is about to prepare for, to prove that we have understood years ago already of the relevance of the Arctic. And to be honest, the discussion of Greenland, of course, had an impact on that. Mm-hmm. But to be clear, it's the same point is, it never was about, from the Washington perspective, about security when it came to Greenland. It was about other issues to remain diplomatic. So therefore, it's very important to do that, because it shows, okay, you are concerned when it comes to the security of Greenland. We are concerned about the security of the Arctic, including Greenland, and therefore we take part in everything what happens there, of course, always in the framework of NATO and not just alone.
You've both mentioned Russia and China as possible threats in the Arctic. I think that's what we usually hear about when they talk about the potential threats. So I want to unpack each of those. Foreign Minister Anand, can you take Russia? What is the threat that Russia poses now in the Arctic, and how is that evolving, if it's not maybe a direct threat right now?
So after the illegal and unjustifiable further invasion of Ukraine in 2022, we have seen Russian infrastructure move further and further north towards the Arctic Circle. The geopolitical environment is shifting rapidly, and that is one way in which it is doing so. From Canada's perspective, we have the second largest country in the world. 40% of our land mass interfaces with the Arctic. 70% of Canada's coastline interfaces with the Arctic. So this is a very real and important shift in the geopolitical environment that we must acknowledge, in addition to climate change, which is melting the polar ice caps and making transition through the Northwest Passage, for example, much different than it has been in previous decades. The fact of the matter is that Canada, while we are appreciative and support Arctic Sentry, we are also taking the bull by the horns and ensuring that we are now ramping up our investments and infrastructure in the Arctic. And this isn't a decision we took today or even yesterday. In the past years, we have been launching procurements for over-the-horizon radar, for Arctic icebreakers, in addition to the ones we already have, for NORAD modernization. And here, I will say that we are very closely partnered with the United States in terms of continental defense. So when we think about the Arctic, we have to ensure that it's not just NATO that we are focused on. NORAD, and in particular the role that Canada and the United States play in aerial surveillance over the Canadian Arctic, is extremely relevant and important. These two systems of collaboration are complementary. And the fact of the matter is that we need to all acknowledge the changing global threat environment and the importance of supporting each other, collaborating with each other in terms of our capabilities in the Arctic and our diplomacy in the Arctic. And the final point I'll make is we have an Arctic foreign policy, and we've had one for years. We opened a consulate in Nuuk, Greenland. Thank you for hosting us, because we believe in expanding our presence in the Arctic, and we want to do that in collaboration, especially for purposes of Indigenous peoples and Inuit, the original owners of the land. We will also open a consulate in Anchorage this year for the very same reason. Our approach is collaborative. Our approach is one in which we build together through multilateral organizations and partnerships.
It's okay, you can clap. We love claps. We love applause. Senator Murkowski, the foreign minister laid out Russia's really growing opportunities, I guess, to get closer to the United States, to North America, to Canada, as times are evolving. What about the threat from China? How has that, is it a threat right now? Are you seeing that manifest in any way? And again, how is that one changing?
The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes in terms of what we're seeing with China. And it's not just with China. We've seen China up in the Arctic on doing research or mapping, whatever it is they may say they're doing. But the new factor here is what is happening together in cooperation with Russia, whether it is the joint bomber operations that we are seeing flying over the north, that we are sending up our fighters to intercept, whether it is the Coast Guard and naval vessels that are operating jointly. Used to be the Russians would lead, now we're seeing actually the Chinese lead some of this. So what we're seeing is what is unusual. Now, you have mentioned the proximity to Russia, and I think particularly when we're sitting here in Munich, it's easy to just think about the eastern side and the threat from Russia from here. But for us in Alaska, it is very real. It is every day. It is 2 miles. 2 miles between Little Diomede, which is U.S., and Big Diomede, which is Russian. 57 miles from basically the shoreline of Alaska to the shoreline of Russia. So it is real. We see it. We feel it. And I think the geography hasn't changed. I'm fascinated, too, that we have such a full audience today, and I'm encouraged by it, but I'm just going to tell you, the map hasn't changed. Alaska was always sitting there. Canada occupies as much of the Arctic as it does. Greenland is massive. The geography hasn't changed, but the threats have changed, and the threats have changed because we have seen the warming temperatures due to climate change that are opening up these avenues of commerce. That we are seeing the threats to infrastructure that we had previously built up in the Arctic that are now challenged. We are seeing changes to this threat because of this combined operation or cooperation between Russia and China. And this is why we need the alliances that we have. This is why we need the NORAD cooperation, why we need a strong NATO alliance, why NORAD and NATO must be working in tandem with one another. Because the alliance that we're seeing with China and Russia right now, think about where else on the globe they're partnering, they're working together. It's in the Arctic. Mm-hmm. So that should send as much a message as we need about why the Arctic matters right now from a security perspective. So there is much that must be done, and I'll end my comment. Several of you have noted high north, low tension. It came to my attention yesterday that somebody said it should be high north, low attention. Oh. Because in fairness, we have not been paying attention to the Arctic as we need to from a security perspective. We've made investments in the past and we've walked away. And now we want the opportunity to dust them off, to build them back up at what cost? That's why we're here.
So I was very struck by the Munich Security Conference. When you go on their website, there's this highly produced video, and it's an elephant that's walking, and it says, we're going to address the elephant in the room. So I'm going to address the elephant in the room because, yes, there are these threats, but one of the major reasons I suspect that a lot of people are here tonight, in addition, obviously, to seeing everyone who's up on stage, is the fact that President Trump has been talking about the U.S. owning Greenland. So I just want to get that out. He spoke about it again yesterday. Madam Prime Minister, he said last night that, that the United States is in negotiations to take Greenland. You've said in the past that he should be taken seriously when he's talking about these things. Do you believe that President Trump still wants to own Greenland?
Unfortunately, I think the desire is the same. It's something we, of course, talk a lot about. And I would also add that I think the pressure on Greenland is totally unacceptable. We are talking about threats, but as you often say, Jens-Frederik, the people of Greenland have never been threatened before by anyone. So I think the pressure is unacceptable. I think we have been very clear from Greenland and Denmark, and by the way, from all of our allies, Canada and Europe, and good friends in the US, that there are, of course, things that you cannot compromise on. Our basic values, the cornerstone, I mean, of our democracy is, of course, the respect of other states' sovereignty and territorial integrity, and, by the way, a people's right for self-determination. There's a very proud people living in Greenland. So there are things that we cannot compromise on, and that, by the way, we will not compromise on. But there are other things we can do together, and we have already been talking a lot about it. We have a, as many of you probably know, a defense agreement. The Kingdom of Denmark and US, we have had it since 1951. It gives a very, I mean, it's very easy for US to have a stronger footprint in Greenland. At some stage, they had 17 bases and 10,000 soldiers. Now there's one base and 200, 230, 40-something people there. And I mean, we have always been a very reliable, strong partner for US. So if it's a question about home defense, if it's a question about common security, we will always like to work together with the US. So that is possible, but no. Everybody asks us, do we think it's over? I mean, no, we don't think it's over. We now have a working group It's good. We will try to see if we can find a solution, and you can rely on us, you can trust us. We will do whatever we can. But of course, there are red lines that will not be crossed, and we will stick to our strategy.
Mr. Prime Minister?
Yeah, thanks. And I just want to add that I don't think it's an elephant in the room anymore. He's pretty transparent and has been for 14 months. And the pressure on the Greenlandic people, if I think about my people, we are so proud. We live in a harsh environment. We are